and welcome to the DIY Photo Organising podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo organising. I'm Chantal from Photos in Order.
And I'm Fiona from Photo Helper. Hi, Chantal. How are you?
Hi there. Good. How are you?
Great. All right. We are excited today. We are thrilled to invite two, not just one, but we get a double dose today. So two guests with us today. So I am going to introduce them. First of all, a big welcome, Cathi. Hi, Cathi. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Great. And Jordan. Welcome, Jordan.
Hi, ladies. Yes,
Hello.
So happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let me tell our lovely listeners about you guys. And then we have some exciting questions, and we just would love for you to share your knowledge and information about a fabulous book that is now released that we can share with the listeners to learn some more about their photos. All right. So we have two generations with us today. We're calling two generations, but we have the same passion for photos, which I think is just so fabulous to explain and share how this joy of photos can just really is seamless across all generations. So Cathi Nelson and Jordan Babeon are here with us today for an engaging conversation, which I'm sure it will be, of course, about how they work together on the newest edition of the book, Photo Organising Made Easy, going from overwhelmed to overjoyed. So Jordan is herself a tech entrepreneur born out of the software consulting industry, and she brings at least 15 plus years of experience working with helping businesses set up their own software systems, which is a fabulous insight into the digital world, which is so important. And we're thrilled that this has been now added to the book. And Cathi is a baby boomer whose passions for photos and stories have developed from a career in teaching photo organising and scrapbooking. So Cathi is the leader of a global photo organising movement, of which Chantal and I are a part of, which we're thrilled to have been now for a number of years. Cathi is a cutting-edge entrepreneur and a speaker. And in 2009, she's founded the Photo Managers. And it's a leading organisation in the certification program in photo management industry. So Cathy's been featured in the New York Times, in the Atlantic, Real Simple magazine, and also in the Wall Street Journal about how to organise and preserve the legacy of family heritage through photos. My goodness, that is a mouthful and a privilege to be able to introduce the two of you. So let's jump straight in. We are here with two women and they're solving the same problem and with the same passion. So I'm going to start with my first question with that exact point. So Cathi, can you start us off and just help us and explain what do you mean by the same passion?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started helping people organize their family photos, starting in 2009, when I always tell people the goal wasn't necessarily to get to organize your photos, that usually the goal is to tell a story with our photos, right? I always love to ask people when they ask me what I do to start with, why do you take photos, of which at this point in time, everybody says yes. And the question then I like to ask next is, well, why do you take all those photos? And then as people kind of take a deep breath and think that through, they realize usually it's to remember something, it's to document a moment in time, it's to remember and why do you like looking at old photos? It's, gosh, look at my mother when she was my age, or I can't believe, that's my first child. Now look how much they look like my father, or different things like that. And so for me, the goal of organizing is really a means to an end, right? That our goal is to reconnect with our photos in a meaningful way. And so that's what I mean by, the two different generations. And so my passion is around the fact that photos tell stories. And then when I met Jordan, she can probably share with you that, it was, we say two different generations. This is a funny little bit about that. So those of you who are listening, where were you in 1982? Actually, I'll turn it on YouTube. Where were you in 1982?
I was just starting high school.
Yeah, me too. High school. Yeah.
What about you,
I was
Cathi?
I was just finishing college and I was saving my money to buy my first camera, which I waitressed and worked 2 jobs and bought my first, it was an Olympus OM1 with $400 in cash and $1 bills, because I really wanted to document my friends and family and tell stories with them. And Jordan was actually a newborn baby, but so
Yeah.
I'll let you take it from here with Jordan to talk a little bit about.
So you weren't buying your first camera straight then, right, Jordan?
I don't think I did. Gosh.
Yes. So I was born in 1982, but not too many years after that, I was certainly enamored by the pictures and stories and that my family started telling us. I mean, I'm fortunate that I come from a family that really hung on to a lot of history, and I had access to it at a really young age. I mean, I remember being very young, hearing stories, about my great uncle in World War II and seeing these pictures of him as a pilot, and just being blown away by it. And literally just kind of reliving, understanding, who these people were kind of before they became my mom or my, grandparents or whatever they were to me as a child. And so I just was always fascinated by stories and photos in general. Something that I really do align well with you on, Cathi. I think, we both have that in common. But what really changed all of this for me was when I became a mother. So I had twins in 2014. And at the time I was a director for Oracle, managing a really large team and had just a crazy schedule. And I think working in technology, working in software and data, specifically, I knew just what really the reality of kind of the state of my collection. And I just became scared that, oh my gosh, now I have these 2 people that I want to be able to provide that for. And I was worried that, I was worried mainly about corruption and loss just with my background. And then the other thing that I think really impassions me about this is being a young mother and being around the other young moms who were totally overwhelmed by their technology. And I just really felt like, gosh, this is a problem. This is something that, these women can take control of this. And it's so important that we really need to better support them.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that, Jordan. Can I ask, so when you, because so many of our listeners, are really spread across a lot of different ages, and there's definitely women in exactly the same position as you would have been back then. So being from such a strong technical software background and having that knowledge, what was your first steps? Like, did you research? Did you automatically know what to do? Or did you have to learn even for yourself when it came to what to do with the photos? Like, where that feeling of being scared or concerned, what was your sort of knowledge already? And did you have to then learn more specifically around the photos?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I think that I made a lot of assumptions. I think that, like a lot of people that come to work for me at my company now, we do this. We do this for people, and like yourselves, and I think a lot of the people that have a technical background make a lot of assumptions that it should be easier than it actually is. But I knew it wasn't going to be overly easy. Anytime you're working with a lot of data, it's complicated. So I tried to outsource it, is actually what I was just like, I know I don't have time for this. And I just had a bad experience. I did find someone, but it just wasn't approached with the right methodology. Kind of, I looked at it and said, oh my gosh, this isn't being done from a software data standpoint. This is being done from like a scrapbooking, impassioned photo standpoint. And that's not what our photos are anymore. Our photos are digital data. And it really, when you're dealing with tens of thousands, 50,000, hundreds of thousands, even millions of anything, especially data, you're going to run into a lot of complexities. And so, it triggered a midlife crisis, essentially. I left my job at Oracle. I started, my company and learned a lot. But really what I leaned back on was, all I'm doing now is helping, instead of helping businesses with their money, I'm helping, moms with their photos. But I'm using the exact same methodology to take data from one place, scrub it and clean it, and get it loaded into another system. So it was really, I don't think I could have done it as easily if I hadn't had all that experience doing it.
So that's such a great amount of knowledge that you obviously then bring to this second edition of the book, because Chantel and I've been in, we've been in this industry for a little while, but I really appreciate the angle that you're bringing in here, because it is such a sentimental thing to talk about photos, and yet you're saying this with passion, but with such almost a very clinical structured process in data, which is so important to be able to have the two to blend together, which is really great. So can we maybe bring in this information, and how have you been able to capture this in a book that can teach people, because your knowledge is obviously very detailed. So do we have to be so techie that will we be able to understand what the book is written about? Or is this mainly for sort of photo organizers that have been around for years?
No, and I'll let Jordan answer how she wrote the two chapters. But so Photo Organizing Made Easy was a book that I wrote that it's been out, I think 3 or 4 years now too. I lose track of my years, but with great reviews. And what I did is I knew that the digital part had, things had changed. They keep changing. So I knew that the book needed to be updated just with that particular piece of it. And so I went to Jordan and asked her if she could, who was the expert I knew that's very approachable, because of the fact that Jordan approaches it with the same passion that I did, like you're saying, that emotional piece about photos, but with that mindset. And so Jordan has also done a course for us, and she, walking you through Google Photos, Amazon Photos, OneDrive, and iPhoto, or the Mac ecosystem. So I think, Jordan, you could probably share a little bit now how you kind of help people understand the different software systems, and then making a choice from that about where their photos should go.
So Cathi, that's what you've now included in the second edition. So what other differences, what's new in the second edition? How does it look different from the first one?
It's the main differences. We added those two new chapters, full chapters written by Jordan, and we actually placed them at the beginning of the book instead of the end of the book or in the middle, because we realized a lot of people, if they're scanning their printed photos, which most people will do with their printed, it's better not to do that after they organize. It's better to start with their digital. So we kind of move those two chapters forward. And then we just updated our product recommendations and different things that needed to be updated in the book about products that no longer exist. Like we used to talk about a flip pail, which is a mobile scanner unit because technology has changed, right? And so that's kind of otherwise the book is, a lot of the heart of the printed part hasn't really changed much, but that digital piece is all brand new, completely new.
And that's like, you got to publish a new book every year. Technology.
I was going to say.
You really would. Yeah. No kidding.
So Jordan, what kind of information have you added in then in that digital section about the different programs, and sort of how people can because there's so many different programs out there. How have you sort of been able to manage this into the chapters in the book on digital photos?
Well, so I think that the biggest shift, Cathi, I think is kind of reordering this a little bit. I think when the original book, which I'm such a fan of, I love, it's so approachable. And I think it's so relatable, the way that Cathi walks us through it. But digital was kind of at the end. And what I've recommended to Cathi is that we really flip-flop that and kind of get that digital piece taken care of first. Because if you spend all of this effort digitizing, you're turning physical clutter into digital clutter, right? And so a lot of times people put that off because it's more fun to scan those old pictures and show them, right? I mean, it just is, than going through and scanning for duplicates, or like figuring out why that hard drive just crashed on you, or whether you loaded that SD card already, or getting access to your, husband's iCloud account so that you can get his photos or whatever it is, right? But if you do that first, if you figure out what that place is, then it's nice. You can just fold everything else in. But as far as kind of answering the question about, how do you in a chapter or two talk about what system's right for you? I think it's how I've tried to approach it is in our classes, as well as in these chapters, is there's not one right system for you, for everyone. There just isn't. There's a right system for you. I'm sure that there is, but it's not a one size fits all. So I kind of walk through some factors that should really influence that decision. Things like, what devices are you using? What devices are your loved ones using? Because not all systems work with everything, right? So kind of figuring that out, and then talking about, cloud-based systems versus local systems that might sit on your computer versus hybrid systems, that have a combination of those two. And then security and privacy, some basic things, and kind of try and break the language down so that it's a little more understandable. And then give some recommendations of, here's some solid systems. Because there's really great options out there. And that's really what, we try and get people to do is figure out what technology is right for me. Not just my friend uses Google and she seems to love it, but we're all Apple, so that might not make sense to us.
Exactly. That's great. I'm really looking forward to reading these these chapters myself. So Cathi, could you share with us the book now in the second edition? Who is it primarily written for? What's your primary audience as to who this is really suitable for, to encourage people to really, potentially pick up and read and get some benefit from?
That's a great question as well. It's really for everybody. I've gotten letters from people all over the world thanking me. It's such a pleasure to hear from somebody out of the blue who's actually, bought the book and followed the steps and has really found it so helpful. And we've gotten a lot of great reviews. I think most people, it's really written as a how-to manual, and with each chapter kind of standalone. So if you're just getting started with the digital, you can read those 2 chapters, put the book down, pick it back up if you're ready to jump into scanning and kind of read through the scanning chapters, put it down, pick it back up if you're, we know that you're going to come across home movies and different kinds of memorabilia and things like that. So we will also, so there's a chapter on that. So I do think what demographic, though, it's certainly if you have a combination of both analog printed photos, home movies, memorabilia, and digital photos, it's the perfect book for that. If you only have digital photos, I don't know if you want to get the book just for those 2 chapters, but it's relatively inexpensive, and you can get a Kindle version or and then we also have lots of worksheets. So we do direct people back. We have free downloads and worksheets that you can download, like family timelines and things, to make it easier. So our goal is to really encourage people to figure out how to take those steps themselves, or you can always hire somebody if you get stuck.
Exactly. And so do people need to have that prior knowledge of anything, organizing or scanning or anything, or is there any sort of prior knowledge, or really it's for the beginner? It's really for the beginner. We really start with the why, setting a goal in any kind of project like this. I think it's really important, like Jordan was saying too, not all one system fits all. So we really try to take you through the process of writing down, what is it that you hope to achieve? What's
what does what is your photo collection organized and accessible to you really look like? And then from there, we walk you through the different steps. And we try to just simplify it, because most people think it's going to be a weekend process. They think, oh, I think, on my to-do list, I think this weekend I'll pull out the old boxes of photos or whatever. And then we're there to kind of walk you along and let you know that, no, it's a process, but it's so worth it. And at the end of the book, I think it's 7 or 8 stories of people who have done this work and what the outcome was, how they felt about it. Because to me, otherwise it would be very dry to just read facts. And I wanted to bring people's stories in so that you could learn from other people about the value of what this meant for them.
Yeah. And that sounds very familiar to us, doesn't it, Fiona?
It does.
One of our golden rules is the why, know your why. We always start with that. It's so important. And we find, and you'll probably be the same with all the experience, that it helps people, especially also in the decluttering phase, to know exactly what your aim is and what you want to achieve. It makes it easier to make decisions. They might still be difficult, we all struggle to let go of sentimental items, but knowing the goal helps so much, we find. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Cathi, I'm really interested with your experience in this industry for so long. Where do you see the future going with photos then? Because I know, obviously, you had to update the book already, and no doubt there'll be other updates as we go along, from both of you. But where do you see this industry going in the future with photos?
I think we have those of us that are professional, who do this as a profession, have great job security. There's a great comment from the CEO of Nixplay, which is a wonderful photo frame. They're out of Hong Kong, but he said to me recently, everybody needs a photo organizer. They just don't know it yet. But so I think we'll continue to escalate the number of photos we take. I don't think that's going to change with the cameras, in our hands. The other really important point is, I think artificial intelligence will help us in something like facial recognition, geotagging. All of those technology will continue to help us in some ways. Now on our phone, I can, type in dog and see every dog picture I ever took, right? And it works very well. But again, the reason why this is going to be so important is it won't really ever tell me. It'll pull up pictures of a dog, but it won't tell me that maybe that was the day that Ollie, my puppy, ran away. And we thought we lost him, and we were so terrified, and he came home. Or, those parts of the story of the photos, that's what we still need to capture. And that is something that human beings need to do that work. And that's something that should be enjoyable for us, why we might want to print our photos and put them in photo albums, or put them on the, do wall galleries so that people can see your photos. I don't think that's ever going to change.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. And it's so true because, I think even from the technical side, I'm sure Jordan would know, and you may put this in the chapters as well. But you can capture those stories, obviously, from the digital side in, your metadata and all of those types of things, but it still has to be done. You can't process and program those types of things as far as it being data. It's still got to come from us. Those stories are lived experiences that we need to capture.
Jordan, I don't want to interrupt you on the question, but I'm curious too to hear Jordan's response though, because here's our 2 generations, right? That's my perspective of what the future is. What does Jordan think?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to jump in because I do have like a little bit of a different perspective here. I think that, we really do have an emerging, industry here that isn't just restricted to photos. I think it's digital data services. And I think it's the new kind of, lawn care is the only other kind of way I can relate to this. It's a luxury service. I understand that, but we're so accustomed to outsourcing some of this stuff as we get busy. And the reality of our digital lives is massive. A family has as many digital assets that they have to manage as a small business did a few years ago. And those small businesses had services supporting them. This is complex and technology is going to change. You're not going to even do this once. I'm want to be realistic here. You're going to do this, you're going to get your system set up, but there's going to be a new, better system. Maybe it's made by the same person, maybe it's not, but at some point you're going to have to move that over, because digital data isn't permanent. You have to keep refreshing it. You have to keep backing it up, and it takes management. And so it's not just your photos, it's your digital files, it's your passwords, it's your contacts, it's it's your digital life. And why technology is fantastic, it can be really overwhelming. And I think that the future of this is going to be expanded a lot, and people are really going to start needing additional resources to support that do-it-yourself group. But I also think that they're going to need services for those that are going to need to outsource this.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's such a good point, Jordan, because I think where a lot of people listening can probably relate is like this emerging of an industry like this, or it's this awareness. It's the knowing that I am overwhelmed. I do feel out of control, and I haven't yet got my systems in place to be able to continue with the changes in technology, which is where I think this blend of these two generations, and both of your experiences are so such a great mix together, because this awareness, Jordan, you're talking about of these emerging industries and this digital data management is like our photos growing from, our slides, and then our negatives, and then we've got our prints, and then, any increase in VHS and tapes and, the old film rolls. And as we continue to grow in this emerging, it's so overwhelming with each new step. And I think even digital, we kind of lump it in one. Oh, it's digital now, but there's just as many formats and different, different type of data and different ways of managing it. And it's a really interesting point that you make about, needing those services. And I think in general, I would say that when we grow into a new area of an industry growth, we come at it with this unknowing of what's to come, but we know we're overwhelmed. We just know, I don't know enough yet to know what I don't know, like I know that is coming, and I can't keep up. So this feeling of this constant state of almost being frozen, of I don't know what to do, and so I don't do anything. And so how do you kind of help people through that, Jordan? Like, that first sort of bit of information where they know that it's just overwhelming.
I think that's it. I think there's always a trigger, and that's usually how we start to get to know people, is there's a trigger, and it could be, I just became a grandparent. It could be I'm an empty nester. It could be we have a wedding and we don't even know where to start, or it could be, we just lost somebody. I mean, there's a trigger typically where it's like, this part of this is overwhelming. And I think at that point, once we can kind of gain trust and find solutions for people, because technology shouldn't be overwhelming. It should be a tool that helps you in your life. Mm-hmm. And if that's not the case, then there's something not right there. Yeah. And it shouldn't consume you, right? And so I think when we can help someone solve the problem, then we can start exposing and saying, let's look at passwords next, because this isn't even, these things come up in estate planning, these come up in divorces and separations, all these other triggers. And there's really a lot of education, I guess, is maybe the best answer for that question, Fiona, is we aim to educate and become a trusted source where we can say, don't worry, we got you. We know you're sitting on, Apple, and here's the relevant updates so that you can add in the legacy contact, with the new exposure. And this is why it's important to you. So we really just try and empower and educate the people that we get to interact with.
Yeah, I love it. Beautiful. Now I have a question, that our last kind of a question, perhaps, but I'm going to put you both on the spot. Firstly, so Cathi, if you can think maybe just a few of your top tips for our lovely listeners, of what you would say if they're starting out on their journey of photo organising for themselves and they're not quite sure what to do, where to start, what to do. What tips would you say that you could offer up to help them on their journey in organising their photos?
You know what? I will start and I will talk about printed photos, and I'll let Jordan talk about digital, because it's two different answers, right? So if you're starting with a lifetime of boxes of photos and slides, my first tip is to gather everything into one place and assess the mess, right? So don't just start pulling out a few albums, just designate a corner in your room, in your house somewhere, and start gathering everything that you have. And then don't open the boxes, don't look at the photos, because that'll just suck you right into like the time warp. There'll be plenty of time for that, and then start a list. I have 7 scrapbook albums and 5 boxes of loose photos. And so that you just have a general overview of what you have. And then I like to talk about the 80-20 rule. I want you to think about eliminating about 80% of that so that you keep the 20% that matter the most. And I love this. I use this acronym a lot. I'm sure you've heard this before, the ABCs of photo organizing. I started use that years ago to help people visualize this. You're going to want to ask yourself, what are the A photos, the ones that are album worthy, you want to archive? The B photos are the ones you can't make that decision about, so it's okay to put them back in the box, but put a note on the top of the box and say, whoever inherits this box of photos, you have my permission to throw them away, because so many people are overwhelmed with photos they've inherited, and they feel a tremendous sense of guilt that they don't know who's in the photos, and they don't want to throw them away, and they get merged with their collections. The C is, yes, you can throw photos away, and you want to get rid of your scenery shots, blurry dud photos. Scenery, a lot I say, the sun will hopefully set again next year, or the ocean will look the same, or the Grand Canyon, or where your vacation places are, because the S is the story, does it tell a story? So you want to save those story photos. And then last of all, you do not have to organize chronologically. You can also organize in themes. So I believe we take photos, we live day by day in a chronological time order, but we remember and reminisce through themes of families that love to celebrate or love to go on vacation, or, it's sometimes difficult times. Those are themes of our lives, and it's okay to look at your photos thematically. How was that?
Beautiful. Such freedom. It's inspired me. Cathi. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so, Jordan, what would your top tips be for our listeners as far as them helping them with their journey if they're just starting out in this area of organizing their photos?
Well, first, I just want to crush a little on what Cathi said. I love the ABC part of the book. It is so applicable to every part of your life. I will just say, I have started to ABC all kinds of stuff, not just my photos. So I love that, because I just struggle with clutter, you guys. And I think so many of us do. And the last couple years with COVID, I think has amplified that for me. Like, I just want things clean and simple. And so that ABC is so valuable. And I encourage you to loop back to it on your digital, but unfortunately you can't start there for digital. You have to do things a little differently. So what I would recommend is that you start with the same first step Cathi mentioned, which is take an inventory. And so I love physically bringing this over here to a location, to a work spot, just like Cathi said. And I think you can approach your digital part the same way, because you are going to find photos in all kinds of physical places as well. You're going to find CDs with photos. You're going to find flash drives. You're going to find external hard drives, old phones, old computers. The list goes on. So bring those physically into one place and start an inventory. But you also then have to think of those cloud-based sites, things like Google, Dropbox, Shutterfly, Snapfish, social media, all of those other places, but make that list. And then from there, I think that you really want to pick that system. So you want to figure out, where is all of this going? And doing that as early as possible is going to help you be strategic in kind of the next steps, right? Because you want to minimize the work. So if you're going to live in Apple Photos, you don't want to take all of that out, right? So figure out where you're going. And then the third one, I think I would encourage on the digital side, is get some support. So, there's all kinds of resources out there now, thanks to Cathi and the photo managers, and Chantal and you and Fiona, what you guys are using. Get some support. Don't try and do this on your own, because there's people that can at least give you some a better starting place. And so there's DIY classes out there. There's you guys' podcast. There's the Facebook group. There's companies like ours out there to support you. So, and then the book. I mean, you guys, I think I'm not trying to pitch you here, but get some support. Don't just do this on your own.
Yeah.
Even if you're pretty technical, just get a little bit of support.
Yeah.
That's a good
Fantastic.
point.
Yeah.
You can actually get down that rabbit hole and never come out again. It's like so many options, so many variables. And that's why there's no size fits all. It just doesn't exist. It's not that straightforward.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Such good advice. Well, thank you both so much. Now, on to the important bit. I'm sure people are saying, how do I get the book? How do I get it? Where is it? We'll put some links on, but can you just share with us where can people get the book?
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon, and both anywhere, Amazon.com. You can just make sure it's the second edition, Photo Organizing Made Easy, the second edition. Also, the Photo Manager's website, under the DIY, there's a link right there to purchase the book. Those are probably, or anywhere that you purchase, online books, you can find the book.
Fabulous. That's great. Well, we'll put all the links in, and also the details for both of you, and how to connect with you personally as well. We'll have all those links in the show notes of the podcast. So I just want to thank you both so much for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and just, you can really hear the passion in both of you in your areas and experience. And I think people listening that have been through this journey and followed us for a long time, or are just new joining us, if anything, I really hope that it's given them inspiration to have a go, and to not feel overwhelmed, and to know that there is hope and there are tools out there with a book like this, and with people that really do want to see the end result take shape, and those stories come to life, and these memories saved. So thank you both for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure.
Thanks so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Good. So as far as our lovely listeners, don't forget, please, we'd love to have your reviews, and we're always welcome to provide any feedback for us. And if any questions have come up during the podcast, as always, you can contact us on our social media sites, and let us know what they are. And also the tools that we were talking about, some of the courses with the photo managers and things like that too, that's all over on the links on our courses page on the website. So pop over and check that out. And I am Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I am Chantal from Photos in Order. Thanks so much for tuning in, as always. And thanks again to Cathi and Jordan for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to have you. And happy photo organizing to everyone. See you.
Bye, ladies.